Hey everybody, welcome to my kitchen and welcome back to another Self-Care Sunday. So this series, as you know, is going to be exploring mindfulness techniques, arts and crafts, and cooking and baking. And today, specifically, we are going into the bread world. Now, I don't know about you, but I have seen a lot of people baking bread, baking their own bread from something called a starter. Now, a starter is basically like a building block of bread. It's yeast, flour, and water, and what it does is it sort of activates to become this really wonderful chemical base, if you will, for your bread. So I have always been really intimidated of baking bread, but I was able to find some great recipes from some magazines, some digital magazines online through something called RBdigital. Now, RBdigital is available through your Ada Community Library card, and what you can do is you can download the app to your smart device, and you can link your card to your RBdigital account. So there's tons of amazing different kinds of magazines in here. My favorite for baking bread is actually Bon Appetit, which of course, as you know, is one of the greatest cooking magazines around. And again, it is available for free with your Aided Community Library card and RBdigital. Okay, so I also was able to get some help from local baker Mathieu Choux of Gaston's Bakery. So he was kind enough to give me some tips because, as you'll see in this interview, I have had a particularly tumultuous relationship or complicated relationship with sourdough starters. So let's get into it.
All right, so my name is Matthew, and I'm the owner of Gaston's Bakery, where we mill fresh flour and we make authentic breads and pastries daily. So that's what we do. I, for the longest time, we've been serving the Treasure Valley's coffee shop and restaurants and supermarkets and whatnot. We also have a little shop at the bakery where nowadays we do that no contact pickup curbside, and people have really liked it.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about starter. So
Yeah.
a starter is very simple. It's water and flour. Okay, there's as many ways to start a starter as there are bakers probably. Just like everybody's got their own recipe for every dish they like to make. Every baker has the ways they like to make their starter. Since we're very fortunate to be able to get very high quality local wheats that we mill at the bakery, we get our, if we start a starter from scratch, we just use our flour and water. Okay.
Okay.
And then I'll go through a little bit more details on how to get that going. And so what you're doing really is the microbes that are naturally present in the air and in the wheat, in the flour, to do their thing and create that wild yeast. And
Okay.
it's called wild yeast because it's really present in the air and in the flour. And when you combine both and you give them at the right temperature, which room temperature is the right temperature, they'll ferment. Um, and then once you have that started, then what you want to do is you control your temperature. You control your temperature, and then your feeding schedule.
Mm.
So that's all. A starter is actually very simple. It's really firm wild yeast, so it's fermented flour with water. What we do, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about our flour because it's a little bit different. What
Cool.
our
Yeah.
flour, the flour we make, and the meal we use is called a unified meal, which we mill all the flour in one pass, and then we sift it a little bit. So our flour is a lot more whole wheat than a white flour you will buy at the store.
Okay.
And it also doesn't have any additives, which The wild yeast, the microbes in the air, they like that a lot better. So our starter is going to get going a lot faster than if you use store-bought flour.
Okay.
If you're going to use a store-bought flour, it will probably take you a few more days, and you would probably want to start with an all-purpose flour
Okay.
or a bread flour that doesn't have too much protein or too much gluten. So you don't want to do it with a high gluten flour. You would want to do it either with what they call an artisan bread flour or a good quality all-purpose flour. That's how I
Okay.
get started.
Very cool. Is there anything that you should not do with your starter?
Well, so now there's a lot of different ways to do your starter, and one of the main differences is how much water do you put compared to your flour amount of flour.
Okay.
In bread making, everything is a percentage of the flour. So let's say your flour is 100%. If you
Mhm.
put 100% water, you're going to put the same weight, right?
Yeah.
So if you have 1 pound of flour and you add 1 pound of water, that's 100% of each. What you could do a more liquid starter if you do that, if you do the same amount of flour and water, or you could do a very stiff starter if you do less amount of water. Now, a starter, if you don't use it, is very wasteful because you have to feed it. So you're always going to have to either use a portion of it or discard it and to refeed it. Because otherwise, after like a week, you'll end up with like a huge bucket of starter and you'll be wasting a lot of flour, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, I had mine like exploding everywhere. And my husband was like, I cannot stand this. Like, what is going on? So we put it in the refrigerator. And I know there are starters that live for 50 years in refrigeration, but that seemed to kill my starter when I put it in the
You,
fridge.
so if you're going to keep your starter at room temperature, you will want to feed it daily or twice a day, depending on what you do. But let's say if you keep it in the kitchen counter, every day you're going to add your set amount of flour and water. If you put it in the
Okay.
fridge, you should feed it. And when you feed it, then you'll see it grow. And once it grows, I would say for a few hours. And you always use room temperature water. You never use cold water, right? You use room temperature or a little warmer water.
Okay.
Um, Once you see it grow, that it started to grow, just put it in the fridge then. And then you could keep it for a few days before you feed it, or for a week or 2 weeks, depending on how cold you do it, and then what are the steps you're going to take to revive it. But you
Okay.
can't keep it for 50 years in the fridge and then just take it out and use it. You're going to have to feed it every so often.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Well, my viewers and I are definitely going to go on a journey soon with this new starter. Do you have any other tips or tricks for new bread makers or?
Yeah, so there's a couple very easy one. If you want to do bread with starter, and you can always reach out to us if you need to go through our website, and
Yeah.
the contact page goes to me, so I'll see your message and I can help you. But when you do a starter, the hard part when you begin is to know when is the starter ready, when is it prime for bread making, right?
Mhm.
So we have a little trick that we use at the bakery. We take a scoop with a
Ooh,
spoon or by hand, but with a spoon,
uh-huh.
and trying to not compress the dough, but trying to keep all the air bubbles in it, just a nice quick
Okay.
scoop, and then drop it in water.
All
If it
right.
floats, it's ready to use. If
Oh,
it sinks, boop, like super quick, it's not ready at all.
already.
If it's in between, if it's gonna go down slowly, then just wait a little longer or
Okay.
move your starter up on the shelf or above the fridge or somewhere warmer,
Oh,
and half an hour later, it should be ready to use.
awesome. I love that tip. Thank you so much. Hey guys, I'm back. I want to say welcome back to my channel, but I'm not a YouTuber. I'm a librarian, and this is funny. I rewatched my interview with Matthew, and I've got some good tips that we're gonna put to use here with my starter. Now, you may have heard that I killed my first one. Straight up killed it. Like Matthew said, every day I have to feed it. So we are gonna make some pizza later. Well, my husband's gonna make it. Okay, so what I've done is I've actually poured 1/4 of a cup of the starter out of the mason jar, and this is what I'm gonna take out of the starter. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. And now I'm gonna feed my starter. So what I have here is I've got 1/2 cup flour, and then I've got a little more than 1/4 cup of room temperature water, and I'm just gonna add both of these directly into the jar. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to let this starter prime. And priming just basically means all of the yeast and cultures in the starter are going to activate. And we want really active starter to put into our dough, which is gonna make awesome pizza, bread, even sourdough pancakes are really good. So what I've done is I put the lid back on, and I'm gonna put it up on my windowsill right by the sunlight. Even though it's a cloudy day, it's a relatively warm spot, and it's 10:45 right now, and I'm gonna leave it there for 3 hours to reach its prime activation point, so then I can pour some of this into my mixing bowl for some dough. All right, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm back. It has been 3 hours, and I can see all this like amazing fermentation going on. Oh yeah. But I am gonna perform that little not taste test. I am gonna perform that test that Matthew was talking about in our interview, which is to take a quick swipe of your starter and seeing if it floats in a cup of water. So now is the moment of truth. Drum roll, please. Okay, so here's my cup of water. Oh gosh, here we go. Let's see. I am going to quickly swipe. Boop. Make sure there are no air bubbles in there, because that can mistakenly say it's ready to go. So again, the deal is, if this floats to the top, we're ready. If it does not float, the starter needs to prime, which means it basically just needs to sit. Okay, so here we go. There's ready. Okay, moment of truth. What's happening? Is she floating? Okay, that does not look like it's ready. As you can see, it's stuck to the bottom. Let's try this again, because I'm a professional. Okay, so let's do quick swipe and a boom. Come on. Okay, so it keeps floating, and that's okay. So basically that means I need to let my starter hang out for a little bit longer. And once it floats to the top, we'll be good to go. So I know I went through this starter process really quickly. I'll leave a link in the description of this post and in the description box on our YouTube channel of my favorite kind of step-by-step starter recipe / how-to. It's really great. And of course, remember, you can access recipes online with your library card through RBdigital, that digital magazine resource. Anyway, I hope you have an excellent Sunday. I hope you had a great week, and I hope you have an even better one next week. It's great seeing you guys. Have a great day. Bye.